Well, as COVID-19 restrictions ease, many Canadian companies are gearing up to welcome their employees back to the office. But not all workers are eager to make that transition. A Statistics Canada report found that 39% of Canadian jobs can be done working off-site. The vast majority of those workers, 90%, say they are at least as productive at home as they were in a business setting. And 4 out of 5 say they would prefer to work at least half their hours at home once the pandemic is over. But the question is it up to them to decide that? Joining us now is employment lawyer Samara Belitzky to answer some of the questions you might have about the return to the workplace. Samara, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tracy.
So first, let me begin by reading you a tweet from one of our viewers. He asks, if I have kids under 5 at home, can I deny the back to office order or directive in hopes to limit exposure to my child until they are vaccinated? What is a worker's rights here?
Sure. So this is actually a question that we've been getting a lot of over the last few weeks in terms of worker rights. If you were working from the office before the pandemic, the employer does have the right to call you back into the office or into the workplace for work. And you don't actually, as an employee, have the right to refuse unless you have a reason, for example, a medical condition or childcare obligations. And when it comes to childcare obligations, to answer this gentleman's question more directly, in terms of caring for your child, you can have an accommodation if your child is still home, needs to be home, and you've exhausted all other options.
All right, and Samara, with gas prices through the roof, many workers will save money if they continue to work from home. Is that a reason to stay home? And can an employer cut that worker's pay if they don't return to the office?
So unfortunately, the rise in gas prices are not a justification for an employee refusing to return to work. There are other options available, and at the end of the day, the price of gas is not something that would impact whether an employee has to return to work or not. If somebody were to be very concerned about it, it's always a conversation that can happen between the employer and the employee and see if they can come to some sort of agreement if remote work is possible.
All right, and just quickly here about masks. Can an employer insist staff wear masks at work even if the provincial mandates have been lifted?
So for the time being, and this is a very important distinction, it would likely be reasonable for an employer who's concerned about health and safety to continue to have masking be part of the workplace policy. So there needs to be a workplace policy that does have the mask as a mandated implementation in the workplace. And it will be temporary. So at a certain point in time, and I think most of us are hoping sooner rather than later, these things will not be considered necessary or even reasonable anymore. So as an employer, you have to make sure that you're following the data and the science and the ever-evolving situation so that at a point in time when the masks are no longer reasonable, you remove that policy.
Okay, Samara Belitzky, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy.